Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for a figure showcase special. And I thought this would be an interesting video to make, not just to look at the recent 3-0 Rambo 2 release, which I also really loved, but also kind of to study the evolution of 6-scale figures over the last almost 20 years. So for today's video, we're going to be comparing the recent Rambo 2 to the Hot Toys MMS 06 released back in 2005. Now, I've never unboxed that figure until now, so this was the first time removing him out of the package as well as all the accessories. But I did think it would be interesting just to take a look at how things have evolved. So I'm putting both sets next to each other for starters. So obviously at first glance you can tell there's a stark difference between the figures themselves. And even in the accessories, a lot of them are similar, but 3-0 provided a lot of extras, including the machine gun, the bazooka, and the alternate articles of clothing. But then you get the similarities. Both versions come with the compound bow, a set of arrows including conventional ones and the explosive tipped ones. You also get the quiver with both, the AK, and the same number of knives, including the large Bowie style one. The push blades he has at the back that he has in the sheath on his back, and the one on his boot. So being Rambo, these are fairly typical and to be expected. So where do we really start? Let's start with the figures first, because this is where 20 years of evolution really comes into play and becomes obvious. So let's start with the sculpt. I mean, it goes without saying that the 3-0 version is significantly better. The Hot Toys barely has any likeness to Stallone, and the skin is this strange orange, which I guess is how Hot Toys had intended to replicate the tan skin. But look, this is where almost 2 decades of improvements have come into play, where the likeness is just impressively different. But even the detail work on something like the hair, right, the Hot Toys one for its age was just, while it was good, it's very basic, almost like a blob of plastic with some sculpted details. Now you're getting much more definition, and look at the eyes, right? This is where I tend to really focus on figures, maybe a little bit too much, but you can tell how the original Hot Toys was just a paint application, very reminiscent of older like G.I. Joes and 6-scale figures, whereas now the name of the game is really that realism. And even the headband on the Hot Toys was okay, but it lacked the weathering that we're seeing on the newer 3-0 release. The rest of the figure is also night and day. First of all, height-wise, the 3-0 is a little shorter. Not sure if that's meant to be accurate to Stallone's height, since he isn't as tall in real life. So that just shows you maybe an approach to 6-scale that companies are taking now, which is trying to give you the most accurate representation of a character. Skin tone as well on these is night and day, with the Hot Toys having again that orange rubber body. The 3-0 is also rubber but has some more definition and just looks more realistic overall. So look, before we move into accessories, let's be honest. Seeing the two figures standing next to each other, there's just no debate as to which figure is the superior one. Although maybe it is a little unfair given the age of the Hot Toys release to compare it like this. But for its time, I recall kind of having this be pretty impressive, with a release that people knew who it was supposed to be and who it was intended to be. But I think 20 years later, it's hard not to be impressed by the great strides that have been taken, not just by Hot Toys, but other companies like 3-0 here that are giving us that constant search for accuracy. And look, as someone that's been in the game for a while, maybe it has made me a little biased. So if you see me forgiving some issues when I review figures, you have to remember that this is what we used to get, and we were still pretty happy with this at the time. It's not to say that we shouldn't state our concerns or issues with figures, because that's how companies improve. And while the figures have improved significantly, the cost has also increased. So with the added cost, I think it naturally brings with it a desire for figures to be more screen accurate. And I'm not advocating accepting subpar figures at all, but it's really amazing when you realize the era of collecting we're in right now, where not only are you getting amazingly detailed sculpts that really look like miniature versions of our favorite characters, but even the work in the accessories has improved dramatically. Looking at the arrows for Rambo, for example, you can see how the 3-0 versions are so much more adequately scaled, and we now have the ability to really miniaturize these things, or even get the detail is improved. Right? Even the details on the quiver are improved. However, it's not to say that everything is 100% better. For example, looking at the knives, I do like the look of the boot knife a little bit more in the Hot Toys one. But then you look at something like the AK, for example, you can just see that there's just more finesse and refinement to the 3-0 version. And I think that's the general story, right? There's been not just impressive strides in the figures, but also refinement in the accessories and what we can, well, not we, because I'm not doing it, right, but what these companies can do. So I think the best example, if I had to make a comparison, it feels like we've made the jump from standard definition to high definition, and now the improvements we're seeing are going from high def to 4K and beyond, because everything just continues to improve without a doubt, right? And sculpts from Hot Toys, Damn Toys, 3.0, InArt just keep pushing the envelope. So look, I'd been curious to open up this Hot Toys figure for a while, but I wanted to wait until I had the 3.0 version in hand. And this really isn't meant to be a review, right? It's more just some thoughts I had as I looked at the two pieces side by side, where I couldn't help but be impressed with how far the 6-scale world has come. So it's not to say throw out your older figures, because I still like some of my older figures, but there's without a doubt been a dramatic improvement, and it's just amazing to see in 20 years how the 6-scale industry has evolved. So look, just some quick thoughts. Obviously there is one superior figure here, which is without a question the 3.0, but it's always nice to remember where things started out at. So let me know your thoughts on this topic, and as always, thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.